So, and I will suggest when you're doing this to wait a little bit. Sometimes it does take a little bit of time for the rendition to actually appear. But what happens is you can then view the rendition on your rendition tab down the bottom. And there we go. So because I've got this column here, I can tell that's my one that's been finalised. It's already been approved. I can flick through it, and probably not that fast, so you can see what's happening. And there you go, I've got my signature in that there. So I know that that document's ready to go. So my next step then would be to actually finalise the document. And what happens is I can finalise, and you've got the option here to promote the signed copy rendition to make it the main copy of your record, which is what you'd want to do in this situation. It's our final, we don't want any more changes made, so I'm going to promote my signed rendition. I'm also going to keep the original document as a rendition, so I've got that behind the scenes if it's needed at all, and that just kind of flips them around. And in doing that, and that's not going to, we'll show you here's one I prepared earlier. Once I've finalised it, you'll notice it's actually been changed to a PDF now, so no more changes can be made to that once it's finalised in Content Manager. So it's handy to know. And that's basically how it works. So it's nice and easy, the DocuSign part of it. Are there any other questions? Anyone got anything they'd like to ask about it at the moment?
There's nothing in the chat, but if you want to come off mute and shoot through your questions, Robin has asked right now at this point in time, can you reverse the completion of the document? It's a tricky question. Administrators can probably have the option to restart the authorization process, but most users won't have the option to reverse that completion. Michael has asked, is there a way to search for documents that have been signed in DocuSign? Good question.
Yeah, very good question.
Yeah, we do, depending on how you use the document review process as well, we do have a lot of searches set up for viewing that document review state. DocuSign itself can actually send you can extract reports through DocuSign as well. So combining the two together, yes, technically there is a way to do that.
Thank you, Sarah.
Joanne has a question as well. How does this work if the receiver is not a CM user? Great question.
So you don't have to have Content Manager to be able to have a DocuSign account. So that is an individual app. Content Manager have integrated with their process, but you can also use DocuSign to sign documents from anywhere and everywhere. It doesn't even have to be a DocuSign Content Manager document that you're signing. So you do not have to have a Content Manager. You don't have to have CM to be able to sign a document with DocuSign.
No, and depending on your license, Joanne, if you've got an enterprise-wide license, you can actually set up the users as external users in DocuSign and add them to that authorization feature. They'll still get the email. You still need to set them up in DocuSign, so you can do that as an organization, and they will go through that process as well. So they don't have to be an internal licensed user to receive that notification and sign away.
So it just means they won't get the Content Manager email, they'll just get the DocuSign email.
Yeah, correct. Yeah, that's right. Yes, Kirstine, we could search for document review state being complete, absolutely. But you can also use this function without the DocuSign integration. So again, depending on how you'd use that, that could be a perfectly fine search if you're only ever using DocuSign integration. But if you're using just the standard internal to Content Manager authorization feature, then you would see both in that search. And Robin's put, therefore, you would need to export the document for them to sign. No. Is that what you mean, Robin, in terms of it going to DocuSign? Feel free to unmute.
Coming off mute. So what I'm meaning, if you've got, so following on from Joanne's question, if you have external people who don't have CM access, would you then have to extract the file from CM into DocuSign for the external people to sign off on?
No, definitely not. No. So you can just set them up as an external user in Content Manager, or so as an external location, and then that as long as they have an account in DocuSign, which you can set up for them in your tenant, then that process still works the same for them. They just don't get the second email with the link to Content Manager because it knows they're external.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I have a question now. It's Kirstine here.
Hi, Kirstine.
Hi. I've wondered about how the document review and authorization stuff worked in the past, and it seems to be something you set up at a record type level. Does that mean that every document that uses that record type has to use it, or it just means it's available for use?
It depends how it's been set up. You can actually set it up so it does have to go through the document review and authorization process, or you can set up the record type so the person's got the choice whether they want to use it or not. There is actually 2 ways to use the document review tab.
Okay, so you can activate it on a record type but not necessarily need it
Yeah.
when you're creating a document. Right, okay.
Yeah. So I'm just seeing if I've got one. Let me see, what have I got? I think that one's already started. So if I go into this one here and it's got the document review, I can actually untick that, and now it doesn't need to be reviewed or authorised. If I then think, okay, I want someone just to double check the numbers, I think they might be fudging their timesheet. I then just once again go back into the document review tab, and I want it reviewed this time instead of authorised, and then I just tick review, add the person, set a date, and then get it ready to go. So then that person will just get a notification. They'll get an email, but it'll also be in their records due tray for them to have a look at it. And then once again, if you don't want to have anything done to it, just leave everything unticked.
Cool. Thank you.
No worries.
Deb,
Yeah.
Joanne's asked if back to slide 2 and just repeat what we said about the licenses. So depending on the license model you have, an enterprise license model would allow you to add and remove users sort of at your whim, but you can also buy individual licenses, but then that really restricts you to how many licenses you've purchased as to who can sign what. So if you had 10 licenses and you needed to use more than 10, you'd have to switch those licenses around between people or purchase more. Does that help?
Yeah,
okay.
Thanks.
Okay, and no other questions, anyone? Okay, well, if you want to know more, feel free to follow the links that we're just posting here in the chat.
Hey, sorry, just one question before we go. Just a thought around how you guys imagine support might work for this, especially around the integration piece with Content Manager. Do you guys see it as part of Content Manager support in terms of user support for the DocuSign side of things in Content Manager, or do you see it as a separate product, vendor supported entirely, and it will just depend on, I suppose, the particular circumstance of the issue? How do you see support working for it?
Yeah, interesting. Do you mean external, so vendor support? Yep. Most of the customers who are looking at this, or who are, we've got a couple who are in the stages of testing it, anticipate that the administrator will be the same as the Content Manager administrator. So those processes will kind of align together. But I guess it depends on your governance and who you want to actually be doing that. In terms of vendor support, we actually are a DocuSign partner as well as a Micro Focus partner. So, people can come to us as well if it gets too tricky.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, there's no kind of predefined governance model yet. That's all still to be kind of worked on.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. Yep.
Yeah. I mean, that's, along with any information management structure, you need that governance piece and those processes to be defined, and go from there.
Cool. Thank you.
Have you got many clients using this at this moment, Sarah?
At this point in time, we've got one customer who's using it just as DocuSign, and another customer who's going through trialing the integration piece as well. So, yeah.
And is the response and support from DocuSign, have you needed to engage with them as sort of your being one of their partners to deliver this to clients? And how has that been?
Yep, the engagement's been great. They're really quite responsive, and they also have a process for when you do go live that you need to tick a couple of boxes just so that they can assure that the lines are secure and so on. So they've been great, and we haven't had any issues with the actual integration itself. It's been really solid. So yeah,
that's great. Thank you.
In line with the questions that Robin and Joanne asked previously, so with the DocuSign, if you send it to someone who is Content Manager document, and then you send it to someone for signature who doesn't have Content Manager access, and it sends them the 2 links, the one through DocuSign. So I'm assuming that document then it's obviously outside of Content Manager. If it's sent out, it's being hosted with DocuSign, or where is it being hosted, and what are the security ramifications of that?
Yep,
if you're sending
absolutely.
it to someone else for signature?
Yeah, good question. So what happens is it does have a direct link to Content Manager through an API key. So it's the same security from Content Manager straight through to DocuSign. It's hosted in DocuSign whilst it's being managed there, and then it comes back once the signing process has been completed. DocuSign send it back to your Content Manager through that same API link.
Okay. Yeah.
Sorry, Sarah, it's Robin.
Yeah.
And it's probably a DocuSign question, but I'll ask it here. Do DocuSign, that process that you just mentioned then, do DocuSign ever keep a record of that on their end, even though they've sent it back to Content Manager?
I would have to follow that one up. I'm sorry, that's a great question. I'll look into that and I'll get back to you with what we know on that one. Carl probably knows.
Thank you.
Because we've also asked questions around data sovereignty and hosting locations, and we'd be very keen to get those questions sorted. So it probably goes into that same category and around retention and management and jurisdiction.
Absolutely, and I know one customer who is bound by the same rules as you guys have already looked at that, as well as whether this meets QAO requirements and so on. So they're quite comfortable it does, but I can certainly follow up and confirm that with you guys.
Thank you.
Sorry, just in line with what you said, Sarah, with that security there. So if you send it to someone though, once again, if they don't have access to Content Manager, doesn't that mean that the security model of EDRMS is still compromised? Because you could send it to the wrong person and it's just going on, it can't check EDRMS because they don't have an account there. It can only check if they've got a DocuSign account. So it'll just give them access to the said document?
No, so they still need to, when you create the DocuSign authorizers in the Content Manager, it still needs to be a valid location. So you still need to create them as an external location to then be able to get that email address to flick the DocuSign link to. So they won't receive the CM link. Yeah.
Yep, so they will still need to have the full account and everything. It's just not the license and therefore the approval part.
They can be an external account, like external user.
Yeah. I just mean like a login. Yep, okay, gotcha.
Yeah, plus you also need to add them into your DocuSign tenant as well. So your security is managed, and that's why we suggest administrators are probably the right people to look at both sets of accounts.
Yeah.
All good. Thank you everyone for joining us this afternoon, and I hope that has been helpful. Like I said, get in touch if you have any more questions. We're more than happy to help you answer any of those and give you any more information that you require. So thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you all.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.